Welcome to 15 Minutes of Consulting Best Practices. My name is Maria Isabel Rios. I am joined by David A. Fields. Hi, David.
I'm Isabel.
And as you know, we jump right into it. As we get ready for the first question, if you can type in the comments, where are you today? All right, Deidre, can you pull up the first question? This question is from Carol. David, how should people set pricing to cover their cost in addition to contractors?
Okay, how do you set fees to cover all your costs? This one is actually fairly straightforward. As an industry, if we look across in general, the consulting industry, gross margins tend to be around 50%. They can be higher for in certain, as your firm is smaller, like a solo firm, your gross margin tends to be higher. And in certain industries like pharma or healthcare consulting, often they're higher. In some industries, if you're doing tech consulting, it's a little lower. But I would set your fees so that you're creating a gross margin of 50%, plus or minus. That's a decent target.
Right. And David, we should clarify perhaps that is inclusive of the fees corresponding to the person leading the engagement. If you're leading the engagement, calculate what your fee equivalent should be. And that is included in that 50% margin. So anything and everything that goes to delivery.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Maria Isabel. You're absolutely right. Make sure your own costs, if you're on the project, make sure your own costs are in there. Now, to be completely clear, I don't think we advocate setting fees based on internal costs.
Agreed. We absolutely don't.
Yeah. Right? However, if you want to ensure that you are at least covering your contractor costs, that 50% gross margin is a good bogey. We are advocates for pricing based on the value you're creating for the client. But there are different situations, where you have to make sure you're covering contractor costs. So, and I think that's what Carol was asking about. Excellent. If you have a follow-up question to that, if that didn't answer you or you have a follow-up question, just again, type it into the chat and we'll either get to it right now or we'll answer you after this, via on LinkedIn or next time. So if you have any kind of follow-up question around pricing and covering costs. All right, Deidre, what's next?
Second question.
I'll give this one to you, Maria Isabel. What do you see as a typical conversion rate from Zoom call to opportunity? Ooh, good question.
Oh, so the short answer is about 20%. The longer answer is it depends on whether your relationship is cold or warm. So we're going to use that 20% as a proxy of you're already in conversation with a warm relationship, right? If it's the first time you're meeting, a little bit different. And if it's a regular touch-up, a little bit different. What do you think, David?
Yeah, I think so. First of all, I agree with the benchmark, and I agree with your context, putting it in sort of the perspective of the entire pipeline process, as we tend to see it, which is you're reaching out or having some sort of connections to your cool or warm relationships, your network core. Those who get onto a Zoom call with you or into conversation with you, we find about 20% should have an opportunity. And if you're not seeing that, it's possible you're not listening for it or perhaps steering the conversation quite right. And then it goes from there. Of course, inbound, if someone's scheduling a call and saying, hey, I'd like to inquire about working with your firm, Maria Isabel, can I talk with you? I would assume 100% of them should have an opportunity. And like you said,
an opportunity behind them. Absolutely.
Yeah. And if you're doing cold outbound and generating, Zoom calls that way, it's probably going to be below 20% would be real opportunities. So I would think it's too far, probably 10 to 20.
Yeah, fair. We have some very interesting questions in the comments.
Okay.
So
what do we got? What are some good management programs for my staff that I would like to transition more towards a supervisor role? For me, so maybe you see what your interpretation of this is, Maria Isabel. Is that so you want them to step up into a leadership role in your firm, or you just want to teach them to be good managers. If it's good managers, there are actually, I think, all sorts of free resources online or semi-free through Udemy and other courses that will just teach folks to be good managers. And I will tell you, for my money, the best book you can have a new manager read is How to Talk So Kids Will Listen, and Listen So Kids Will Talk, which has nothing to do with managing or business, but it was where the foundations of right side up were. So the whole idea of right side up thinking. Every manager needs to know how to listen. All right, Marie Isabel, your take on that question.
I think it also it depends on where okay, to become good managers first and eventually towards a leadership role too. Thank you for clarifying that. And so in that journey, there's a couple of things. There's nothing like great mentorship. And mentorship is a phenomenal force of training, particularly if you have folks they can look up to and understand, okay, what are the fundamentals of how we manage projects and how we lead in your firm. Once you've understood that, then specific skills you can develop with other folks, right? With free trainings, there's phenomenal places to go also on listening, for example. And we have quite a few modules developed to that because it's such a fundamental element of how you grow good management and great leaders. Hopefully that answers your question. And if not, we'll elaborate more. There was also a question from Mitchell about our guidance on fixed price contracts.
Okay. What is your guidance on fixed price contracts? I would need more elaboration on what the question is, other than I would need more elaboration on what the question is. I mean, there's fixed price contracts. The very easy way to think about the basic fee structures is along two axes. We're consultants, so we're going to do a 2x2 chart in your head very quickly. One axis is when the price is determined. So are the fees for your project determined before the project is done, in which case they're fixed, or after the project is done, in which case the fees are variable? And then what's the basis on which your fees are determined? Are they going to be determined based on inputs like costs or time? Or are they going to be based on value? So that's going to give you four different basic contract structures. We have what's called the premium curve, which if you start you put your pencil kind of in variable time and materials after, so it's based on after the project, it's variable, and its time material is based on input, and kind of work your way around that 2x2. Your premium for the exact same project will increase. So it kind of depends. The best contract structure is actually a hybrid between fixed and some success fees. Mitchell,
exactly. And the variable portion has to do with success, not necessarily with time and materials. So what we're not suggesting is that you straddle a time and material models that has a fixed layer. In general, we find that the variable elements, when you incorporate them and where you capture them most, is when they are related to milestones of success or success events.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. So hopefully that answers it. If you have more questions like that or related to it, throw them in the chat. Let's hit. So many people submitted questions. So many people submitted questions ahead of time. Let's see if we can get to a few more. Deidre, what's next on the list? Where do you go to investigate new tech tools to conduct your coaching? Rod. Marie Isabel, you want to try that one?
Sure. Okay, Rod, we go to our community. We are in conversations with folks who are also consultants all the time. And even with, their own clients, we're on the lookout. What tools do they bring to the table? And then we ask, or at least I know both of us do. Show me again what you were showing me. Do you mind taking a minute, or do you mind sharing after this conversation what was the tool you used? And that's how we expand our repertoire. Advantages of that is you see them in practice, and folks will have opinions.
Right. Exactly right. I mean, we do have some advantage because we have so many clients, and we talk to just a lot of people. And if someone is doing anything even remotely cool, we'll be like, "Oh, that's cool. How do you do that?" And if it's good technology, then we let other clients know about it. So I don't know of any like consulting specific tech resources. I don't know if you do, Maria Isabel, and if anybody listening does, put it in the chat, throw it into
Well,
LinkedIn.
some of the platforms have a reference list
Yeah.
of systems or tech resources people use, but it's
Right.
not the same
Right.
as
We've done that.
being adapted for consulting.
We have some articles on top 10 tech, but we're not a technology. It's not like Linus Tech Tips or something.
Well,
for
and
consultants.
and I know there are add-ons, right? Like, so a lot of us that grew up in larger consulting firms, when we were babies or at some stage in my career, there's an add-on for PowerPoint to make the graphs
Right.
fantastic. And there are other add-ons that are more frequently used by consultants and designed by consultants as well.
Yeah, cool.
All
right. Deidre,
David,
what do we got?
do you want to do a couple of questions on this rapid fire fashion?
Sure, we'll give it a shot. Deidre was just throwing one up. Go ahead, Deidre.
Go.
Is there a difference between old school consulting and new age consulting? That does not strike me as a rapid fire question. That's like a large philosophical question. In some senses, consulting hasn't changed at all, right? Old school, new school, it's all the same, right? You're providing advice, and the spinning wheel of consulting, which is you have to be able to win engagements and then profitably create value, that's always the same. Are there differences between how traditional consulting firms view consulting and the philosophies underpinning it, and the way I think more sort of contemporary or modern firms do it? Absolutely, 100%. And I think we have yet to see what the impact of AI will be. I mean, we are obviously just on the very tip of the forefront of what's going to happen there. I would not want to be entering as an analyst right now, because I think a lot of those analyst jobs or the analyst work is going to disappear.
That's my rapid fire, right? Much as it has continuously shifted. I agree with you. I also think today there are platforms, and that somewhat changes how the work is contracted, where the value lies for the client, right? What you need to make sure to deliver high quality value goes through the same principles. So I'm with you.
Absolutely.
Next rapid fire question.
All right. What do we got? Deidre, I'll ask this one of Maria Isabel. What are the best practices for keeping an active pipeline while not wanting to build a full practice of multiple consultants? You want to stay solo, but also with client work. All right. In other words, how can you be a successful solo, Maria Isabel?
Well, to be a successful solo with a sustainable firm, which I think it's the key to the question, right? We're going to advocate for outreach. So do your outreaches, be in conversation. Where the selection process comes from, and hopefully you're very focused in your area of expertise, is in being more selective on which projects do you undertake yourself and where do you make introductions. In terms of how do you keep building that steady stream of solo work, same way you would if you were planning on doubling, tripling, quadrupling your practice, which is through very, very strong connections. David, do you agree, disagree?
I agree. Here's my rapid fire answer, which is in keeping with yours. We have a book on that. So my rapid fire response to how do you create a steady pipeline of clients is there's a book on that, The Irresistible Consultant's Guide to Winning Clients. And by the way, this was not a setup because we didn't know this was coming in. There's some other questions. Eric has a question. We will either hit that next week or we'll answer it in the LinkedIn afterwards. But I want to make sure we stay on time because we promised 15 minutes and we're coming up on 15 minutes. Before Maria Isabel and I go, we have 3 requests for you, whether you're watching this live or you're watching it replay. First, if you're not connected with me or you're not connected with Maria Isabel on LinkedIn, connect with us. We'd love to be connected with you on LinkedIn. So that's first. Second, if you are not subscribed to our weekly articles, absolutely subscribe. There's so much information in there. And even if the one article isn't great, maybe you'll get a laugh from one of the illustrations. And then finally, we got a ton of questions in, but keep submitting them. Submit your questions. Send them to info@davidafields.com. So thank you for being here. Have a fabulous week. Remember, consulting is about them, not you. It's about your clients and your prospects. So give them value and give them kindness. And we will see you next week.
Have a great week.